I'd like to welcome you to January's Focus on America meeting. My name's Ed Poniatowski, and I'm glad that you all could make it today, given the weather. Seems like we haven't had much luck with the weather these last couple of weeks. But at least the water's not frozen. So we thank you all for coming out today. Next slide. Okay, so there's our agenda. We'll take a quick look at it. We'll begin with the welcome, the prayer, the pledge, and our mission statement. All right. I'd like to welcome all those who are new here. So if this is your first time, please get to know everybody. And at this time, if you will stand and join me in a short prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for bringing us together here today. Lord, we thank you for all of your blessings, large and small. In these difficult and trying times, we thank you especially for your grace, because we know that it's your grace that's going to get us through all of our trials and tribulations and get us home to you. In the name of your holy Son, Jesus, we pray. Amen. You would join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. I'd like to welcome our visitors who are viewing us and with us remotely in Birmingham, Mobile, and those across the nation with the Health Freedom Alliance. Stand for health freedom. There we go. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in. As you can see, our vision statement, we'll take a quick minute to read that. Our vision to promote individual liberty, family values, and the U.S. Constitution by actively participating in the political process. And our mission statement, what we are going to do to achieve that vision. We're going to encourage Americans to be informed members of their communities, develop candidates to restore God-given constitutionally guaranteed liberties, and replace elected officials who do not represent their constituency. Next slide. At this time, I'd like to introduce Rebecca Rogers, who will go over our priorities with us.
We have lots of priorities, but we decided to be focused. Sometimes I get called the Energizer Bunny, and I expect everybody else to just be as excited as I am. And I know you are, but we're going to really be laser focused this year in what we do. Our two main priorities are medical freedoms and election integrity. So election integrity with a push for changes that will need patriots to unite and push, just like we have presented many times before. That will be our primary focus. Without volunteers, we may not work on as many bills this year. Upcoming medical freedoms, cash is king, education, human trafficking, exposing corruption within the state, those are all there, but our main focus is going to be health freedom, election integrity with a push for hand-counted paper ballots. We need volunteers for research, FOIA requests, calls, emails, and other tasks. You may see one of us to sign up, or you may go to our website and fill out a form, and we'll be happy to assign you as many tasks as you will take. Next slide. Okay, we also have some shirts. We kind of have some mantras. I think you guys like them. They've been well received so far. So vaccines are. You can get a T-shirt that says dangerous and deadly. Candidates in elections are selected and rigged. The T-shirts are now on sale at our FOA webpage. You can see some of them out front. We also have one that says fight like a mother. That's my personal favorite. So be sure and get those. They're available on our website and will be shipped directly to your house. Next slide. Central bank digital currency. More and more stores are refusing to accept cash, even though cash is legal tender in the United States. According to Catherine Austin Fitts, cash is 19 to 20% of all purchases. If it drops to 14%, give or take, the feds will trigger a conversion to digital currency and eliminate cash. We will then be just like the People's Republic of China. Remember to use cash. Cash is king. Use it as much as possible. Next slide. We do have two things going on. So we have a candidate survey. That candidate survey is where we polled you guys. We ask you what's important to you. We are sending it to everyone who's running for office. So some of them are willing to put it on record where they stand, and some are not. Those questions are weighted, and that depends on who we give or if we give an endorsement to. Our member survey. This survey will be sent out to our membership very soon. We're approving it this afternoon to determine the issues going forward that are most important to you during the upcoming election and legislative session. The plans are to present this in a bound presentation to our legislative body. So when you get that survey, be sure you fill it out, get it back to us. We'll compile that information and we will send it to our legislators. It'll also be available to you guys. Next slide. Okay, the Vax-Unvax bus. It was in Birmingham at our office this week at Sparrow Health and Performance in Birmingham, and we had a great turnout. It was a great turnout with very, very sad stories. When you see children that have been vaccine injured and you can't take it back, it changes how you view things. And that's what we deal with every single day. There were military members who were forced to get vaccinated. They can no longer walk. They can't work. They can't take care of their family. Just for curiosity, how many of you in this room are vaccine injured or know someone who's vaccine injured? Okay. How many of you in this room think the government has the right to tell you what medical treatments, including vaccines, that you should or should not get? If COVID changed that for you, raise your hand. Thank you, guys. Swine flu? Okay, he said what changed him was the H1N1. When, after it killed 10 people, it was pulled off the market. We have to question, we have so much data now, why wasn't something done about this? Next slide. Oh, so next we have our very favorite person, other than Senator Orr. We have our very favorite person, Bob Retsch. So I'm not going to read all this stuff to you. Let me tell you, he loves spreadsheets. He's a great guy. He's gonna get you on everything he can get you on, but man, he knows his facts. He's here to share with us about election integrity. He and George Berry have gone across the state presenting what they have found, and I think you'll find it very intriguing. Please help me welcome Bob Retsch.
Thank you, Rebecca. Okay, I'm going to start with the video real quick.
Do you swear to tell the truth or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do. Voting systems are, by design, meant to be used as closed systems that are not networked, meaning they are not connected to the internet.
Colorado is considered one, if not the safest state in the nation to cast the ballot. None of our voting equipment is connected to the internet.
So, as Secretary Goswell pointed out, voting machines are not connected to the internet for a reason. On election day in a precinct, are your machines hooked up to the internet?
No, not by any stretch. We go through a number of certifications, government certifications, and the first one is at a federal level. So those standards mandate that election systems, such as ours, are designed to work in a closed system, air-gapped, no internet.
Why would you want to get rid of the machine?
Nobody trusts them.
They're tied to the internet and they work at.
Well, ma'am, they're not tied to the internet.
This vehicle for the transmission for the ICP, is it cellular modem versus VPN?
It is a cellular modem that can be configured in.
Well, ma'am, they're not tied to the internet.
Currently in Chicago County, we work with Verizon to secure that network. What wireless chipset / modem does the hardware have?
We support a variety.
Well, ma'am, they're not tied to the internet.
When people talk about certain things,
This is an abbreviated presentation. George and I have been going all over northern Alabama. We're up to 19 presentations so far, and that includes a couple down in Mobile and southern Alabama. But this is about election integrity and the problems across the nation, and then also concentration on Alabama. I want to go over machines and registration, forensics evidence, reconstruct some crimes, a solution, which is hand count paper ballots, and then the cost of doing this and then fighting back. In the United States, almost everywhere they use machines. A couple small segments. I just read recently that parts of New Hampshire use hand count paper ballots, but the majority of the state uses electronic voting machines. They're categorized into two providers, one Dominion and the other one ES&S. And the configurations vary. They have tabulators here, handicapped access machines, and fully electronic machines. So there's a variety. 27 states use Dominion approximately, and 23 states use ES&S. We in Alabama use ES&S. Message here is that there is a law that was put forth by the Clinton administration, National Voter Registration Act, and it says that the registrars, when you go to register for vote, they are not permitted to ask if you are a citizen of the United States. That means if I, Jose Retsch, German parents and Mexican, crossed the border at Eagle Pass 2 days ago, got on an airplane, flew in the middle of the night to Alabama like they've been doing here in Huntsville, the next day I can go to the registrar's office at the county courthouse, fill out that paperwork and sign it, give it to the registrar. She has to register me to vote in Madison, Alabama. She's not permitted to ask my citizenship and find out whether I'm an illegal alien or a citizen. Not the way it's supposed to be. Okay, so most of the slides you're going to see coming up here is very much like CSI. Everybody's seen CSI. Anybody not? You haven't. You didn't have a TV, that's right. CSI, usually they start the hour-long program with a dead body somewhere and nobody raised their hand. Okay. Nobody raised their hand, no smoking guns, so they don't know who the perpetrator is. And the rest of the hour, they take you through all of the forensics that they dig through to find out who actually did the crime. But in this case, it's not a dead body we have a dead voting system. And it's not just in the rest of the part of the country, it's also here in Alabama. We have a lot of problems. So I'm going to take you through a lot of the forensics because we don't have anybody that raised their hand and said, hey, I'm the guy, or I'm the bad guy that's doing all this stuff. I'm going to start off with a Dr. Frank chart. Dr. Douglas Frank has been, he has been doing a lot of research, and a lot of his information is this I borrowed from him. But this is a graph of voter rolls by state. And you look on the left-hand side, I'm going to turn this. If you look on the left-hand side, the population of people that voted, and as you move up the chart, and it's percent, which is normalized, you get inflated turnout. More and more people vote. Along the bottom, these are a graph that shows dirty voter rolls. As you move to the right from the left, the more people you have participate in voting, in registration, the more people you have registered, there's more and more chance that you have infected voter rolls. And the graph is basically broken into four categories. A clean election would be the ones that the states that have the lower left corner, and as you move to the upper right, you get more and more dirty and more nefarious elections. And I want to say where Alabama is right here, and we're in with other states like Minnesota, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania. Thank you. I couldn't read that. New Jersey, which is, we have a lot of states that are in. We're in bad company here, so we're in the bad zone. Dr. Frank was invited by the folks at the representatives in the state of Wisconsin to evaluate their voter rolls, and when he did, he came up with this graph, presented it to the House of Representatives, and if you look here, the graph tells you a couple of things that stand out. There are 3 spikes there up near 100% registration. They happen to coincide in the 3 major general elections, 2012, 2016, and 2020. Notice how the voter rolls ramped up to 100%, and shortly afterwards, in each instance, were dumped. So it's what's called pump and dump for your voter registration. In the 2016, right after the election, they lost 25% of the registered voters. That doesn't occur naturally. How many people leave the state or leave the county right after the election? You don't get 25%. So the other thing is, after the 2016 election, you noticed how they ramped back up in preparation for the 2020. Now, Dr. Frank presented this to the House of Representatives, and the Speaker of the House said, well, Dr. Frank, you picked the most populated counties in our state. It's probably just an anomaly. He says, oh, not really. I did an analysis on all the counties, and this is what it looks like. Do you see the repeat patterns based upon their population? This is not man-made. When Dr. Frank did not only Wisconsin, he also evaluated a bunch of other states in the United States. I think the number is somewhere between 40 and 46, I can't remember. All of them do this. This is not just Wisconsin. And this is done for a reason. Specifically, it's called voter line of credit. When you go to a bank and you want to borrow money, you can get a signature loan, and after you get that, there's a chunk of money you can write checks against or spend that money against your signature. Well, that's a line of credit from the bank. This is no different. When they manipulate the machines and they increase the outcome way above normal, 67 to 70%, and they have 80 or 90% of people voted, they have to have some collateral to justify it. Because if you, let's say you had 10,000 people living, registered voters in your county, and normally you get 6,000 people to vote, and if 6,000 people vote and you don't have registrations for those people over and above that, at 10,000 or 8,000 turnout, it would be obvious that somebody was cheating. So they use these fake registrations to justify the algorithms they write and inflated voter turnout. All right, so let's go to Alabama. What does Alabama look like? And you can see this is a graph of all the states across the bottom, and normally, if I can you see no, it's not there. All right, so on the left-hand side, I'll have to talk you through this. On the left-hand side, if you are a normal state that's pretty much honest, you're going to get somewhere between 55, 58, and 60 or 70% registered voters. As you move to the right, you notice how that number increases, and you can see where Alabama is at 97%. They're in the contaminated zone, what I'll call. See, the other thing that we learned with this graph is that in Alabama there are 4,600 registered voters that are older than 110 years old. Now, our Secretary of State was asked this question, and his reply was, thank you, John Merrill. I get mixed up. He was asked this question, and he basically laughed it off and said, well, we have a lot of long livers here in Alabama. We live the good life. And that was insulting to me. The fact came out with, there's another organization that just did an analysis on Alabama, and they have some people that are over 2,000 years old on the voter rolls. I think he's down in Madison somewhere, right? Okay, the other thing is I did the research with Dr. Frank's effort. I found that 27 out of 67 counties have more registered voters than they have population. Despite what you're being told by Wes Allen, our rolls are dirty, and they remain dirty. Can you hold your question until we finish, please? You're going to have to hold that until afterwards. Thank you. All right, so here's a very complicated graph. I'll try to take you through it. Look at the blue line along the top there. And that is the amount of people the amount of people that are eligible to vote from age 18 on up in Limestone County. Now, I picked Limestone County because I had the most information on their costs, so I used this as a repeat example here. There's data in other states, but I don't have the information of what the actual cost was to run the machines, and I'll get into that later. But if you look along the blue line there, that's the population of registered voters. And what Dr. Frank found out after analyzing this, and it's the same in this county, it's the same in the whole state of Alabama, and it was exactly the same in the rest of the states that he analyzed, somewhere over 40, is that he found that there was called an algorithm, and he found an algorithm key that was used to convert the registered vote into ballots. And this is used across all of the states. And this number for Alabama was a 64%. He was able to calculate that by looking at 6 counties and the total number of returns for a particular election. It's the same as a 6th order polynomial smoothing, and it's used by statisticians everywhere. So that's how he was able to recognize it. But when you look at this, let me look one more here. He was able to take this data with this algorithm key and predict. If you look at that light blue line along the bottom there, that was Dr. Frank's prediction of voter turnout by age group. Age group across the bottom and voter turnout along the left-hand side. When he predicted that and then compared it to the actual votes that were recorded, you notice that line almost lines up completely. I hope everybody can see that in the back. It's virtually the same. Now, in the world of statistics, you can't say 2 sets of data are matching or don't match, or they're close or not close. You have to come up with an objective formula, and they use what's called a correlation coefficient. And it's a mathematical formula that compares 2 sets of data. If you have a correlation coefficient of 1, that means you have I got to use my public voice. You have an exact match on the 2 sets of data. If you have a correlation coefficient of 0, that means that there is no match. They're completely separated. When you look at the correlation coefficient for Limestone County, it's 0.992. Virtually impossible. It doesn't happen in the natural world. That data is man-made. Now, when he looked at I looked at all the 67 counties, and all of them range between 0.93 and 0.999. Again, virtually impossible. That is a man-made number. And then you see those 2 bumps there where the black line goes above the blue line, where the arrow is pointing. That same curve exists on each and every county in the state that he analyzed. Again, this is not natural. It's a man-made phenomenon that's created through mathematics. Thank you. And there's the guy that knows. Okay. Background on this slide. When I first started doing my research, I knew nothing about the voting process. I just went and voted, and I waited till the end of the day to find out how my vote counted, and I looked at the news media. So George and I went to several counties. We talked to probate judges, we talked to registrars, and went to 3 different counties, and I put this, what I call a process flow diagram, together. Being an engineer, I want to try to simplify a complicated thing. So I'm going to work you through this real quickly. Upper left-hand side, voter rolls, we all know about that. You go to the voter precinct, show your ID. The poll pad verifies, which is connected by the internet, by the way. The poll pad verifies your ID. You get a paper ballot and a marking pen. You mark your votes. You walk over to an ES&S tabulator. Shove your votes into the tabulator. The tabulator converts your ballot into 1s and 0s. Deposits your ballot in a lockbox down below. This machine generates 3 products. The ballots that I mentioned before that go after the election to a county jail in Madison and gets locked up, never to see the light of day except for contested election or you get a court order. We as citizens cannot go see those votes or do a count. The other 2 products are a thumb drive, which is taken out of the machine at the end of the day, and after they download the tapes, and you can see the tapes, a picture of the tapes right there. They sign the tapes, put it in a sealed envelope along with the thumb drive. Either the sheriff or the poll inspector takes it to the county courthouse. At the county courthouse, they open it up, pull out the thumb drive, insert it into a county laptop. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But they download the data from the thumb drive onto the county laptop. After several of the precincts report, they will create a batch. And in that batch, they will insert another thumb drive, download that batch data from that laptop onto the thumb drive, take it over to a Secretary of State issued laptop, insert it in there, and upload the batch. That data immediately goes to two locations. One, it goes to the Secretary of State. The other one, it goes to a company called Edison. Edison is the sole provider, sole source company that provides data, collects data from all 3,200 counties in the United States, and then sends that data out to all of the news media. No matter where you go, internet, radio, TV, all of that data comes from Edison in New Jersey. Now, the thing that I'm having a problem with is that the laptops are loaded, both those two laptops are loaded with Clarity and Cital software. Cital was a company that was started in Spain 10, 15 years ago, and they shortly went bankrupt, and they were bought out by a company called Paragon. Paragon is a multinational, multi-billion-dollar company that has their hands in elections all across the world. They are also in counterintelligence. They were involved in the fiasco, I read, with the Israeli invasion from the Palestinians. Paragon was basically responsible for part of their lack of intelligence. So anyway, the other thing is, the last thing is that the thumb drives, when they get downloaded, 5 to 7 days afterwards, these thumb drives go back to Nebraska and they get wiped clean, and they're going to be used for the next election. So all that data stored there is erased. ES&S Nebraska, thank you. Okay, so what's the problem with this, Bob? We have outdated voter records. We have locked up ballots you can't see. We have a lot of problems with these laptops and the tabulators. All of the hardware is generated and produced in communist China. They have software on there that's called source code that ES&S will not let anybody look at. That man over there cannot see that source code. No independent validation and verification people can see that. There's a firewall there. That is not visible. We have no idea what software is written on those machines. Manipulation. And I'm going to show you in a minute. These laptops can be hacked in from the outside because they have Wi-Fi cards. And I talked about the Edison being the losing guy, but all in all, there are 14 different opportunities for hacking and cheating in this system. Now, when you look at this process, we as citizens are not allowed to see behind the curtain. Everything that's shadowed there is not visible to any of us in this room. We walk over, we put our ballot in, it gets converted to ones and zeros, and we see nothing until 8, 9, or 10 o'clock at night to see what the election results are. We have to trust. We have to trust what they say. There's no problem here. The machines aren't connected to the internet. Just move along. There's nothing to see here. I have a problem with that. Focus on America, when they sued the Secretary of State 2 years ago, they were able to receive a purchase order from Crenshaw County for their Secretary of State issued laptop. And if you look at that purchase order there, you can see on the right-hand side a slightly blue highlighted line. What does that say? Oh, these laptops have to be incorporated with a Wi-Fi card that has Bluetooth capability. Now, if these machines aren't connected to the internet, that man over there, or anybody else that is, I'm sorry, he's coming up later. That's Clay Parikh. Clay, stand up, please. He is our local hero here and has now become a national figure. This man knows a lot about this information that I'm talking about. Thank you. I lost my train of thought. Okay, again, Clay since he travels around the country and testifies in various court cases with election integrity, he was up in Minnesota, and he got his hands on one of those thumb drives that you saw on there that nobody's allowed to touch. Clay opened it up, and this is what he found. That doesn't look like English to me. And it was confirmed by a lady that we gave a presentation to in Huntsville, said that, yeah, that's Chinese writing. That's what's on the source and some of the software on these machines. Again, you can just move along. You can trust us. There's no problem here. Again, this is a very simplified version of what I showed previously, and I put little hackers behind some of the symbols. And you asked, okay, so how can they hack into it? All of them are connected or can be connected to the internet either directly or through Wi-Fi systems. This is how they hack into it. I'll just briefly go through some of this stuff. We talked about the voter rolls. People go into nursing homes and get folks that are really mentally incapable and sign up for registration, and then they get a ballot. And this happens not necessarily in Alabama, but a lot of other states. Hacking through their proprietary data, the source code I already mentioned. Fractional voting. Who knows what fractional voting is? Who does not know? Let's do it that way. Okay, fractional voting is software that's created into the machine when you put your paper ballot in there and it reads that Bob Retsch voted for Donald Trump. The machine says, oh, no, not really. He didn't intend to do that. I'm going to give Donald Trump 0.2 or 20% of his vote, and I'm going to give Joe Biden 80% of the vote. And this happens all the time. It's been proven because when you look at all the data, they come up with fractional numbers. Instead of one whole ballot, they come up with 6,500.3 ballots voted for a particular candidate. So we know that this is done, and it's done at the machine or some other place later on. We really don't know. I'm going to go one more here. IDRAC. Another question, does everybody know what IDRAC is? Who does not? Okay, I'll explain it. Thank you. IDRAC is integrated Dell remote access card, and what it is a little CPU. On your computers, you have a motherboard, and you have a CPU, which is a central processing unit. That's the brains of the machine. In the old days, with the machines, when you shut down your machine, everything shuts down, including the CPU. But on these Dell computers, they have another CPU, so there could be more than one CPU, and this iDRAC computer never shuts down. You shut your computer down for the evening, that CPU is still running. People can hack in through the internet, through a Wi-Fi or whatever. They wake up that CPU, wakes up your machine, and then they'll have full access to your computer to upload, download spyware, software, change numbers or whatever. So on these computers, this is a vulnerability that we need to take care of. There's only one thing on this whole flowchart here that is non-hackable, and that's paper ballots in the upper right-hand corner. Okay, so let's reconstruct some of the crime. This gentleman, his name is Clint Curtis, was a former computer programmer in Alabama, and in sorry, I talked too fast. Florida. He was paid by Tom Feeney, as Speaker of the House of Representatives in Florida, and he was asked to write a code that he could insert into the machine to guarantee some of his particular colleagues would actually win the election, and it was a success. And correct me, Clay, I think it was like 60 lines of code. Thank you. 60, which is not very much. So once this was a success, it was picked up by the CIA, and then after that, you started seeing elections around the world here that use electronic voting machines, and the candidate that wasn't favored to win or was a nefarious person ended up winning. The most recent example, if you read the news, was in Brazil. That guy was not, the Prime Minister was not expected to win, but he did. and it was one in the main cities, not the countryside. Very similar to what goes on here. Shortly after that, Italy, Germany, Netherlands, and other countries dumped their voting machines. In 2017, in February, there was a news article that came out right after the 2016 election with Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. After that election, the Netherlands and other countries dumped their voting machines and went back to paper ballots. And I have to ask you, I mean, what did they know that we're ignoring here? And in my opinion, we haven't had a free and fair election since 2008. And here's a key important point here. It's not Republican versus Democrat. It's us in this room against them, whoever they are, because we don't know the names of these individuals. One more piece of information from Dr. Frank. He was able to get one of the few states' cast vote records. Now, and when he took this cast vote records for Rhode Island, he created this graph on the lower side there. And you can see right from the get-go, Trump's clock was being cleaned by Joe Biden. And it increased to about 100,000 votes. And you can see as time progressed along the bottom there that it was a no-brainer. Trump was going to lose the whole time. But if you look at the upper graph, that's the graph that was shown on TV. This is what the people of Rhode Island and other parts of the nation were looking at. And you can see it's a horse race. They lied about this data because they wanted you engaged and watched on TV. And the reason they do that is the more viewership they get, the more revenue dollars they get from advertisement. So they wanted everybody clued in right until the very end. And then after you went to bed, you can see how they inserted the correct amount of votes for Joe Biden to accurately report that he won by 100,000 votes. So I got asked the question, and most of the people here are pretty savvy and know this, but if they lied to us about global warming, they lied to us about vaccines and mask mandates, they lied to us about electric vehicles, they lied to us about the pandemic, it's very easy to lie to us about the elections. It's a no-brainer. They can do that. Here's some more forensics. This was the 2020 election between Trump and Biden, and if you look at the timestamp on the top there, it's 11:08:28, and you go down to the next timestamp, which is 11:09:01. Trump loses 20,000 votes. 33 seconds. How does that happen? And oh, by the way, Joe Biden just increased his count by 20,000 votes. And this is just one example. Just think about it. When you guys watch TV, how many people are looking at the numbers and remembering those huge numbers, and then 20 seconds later there's 20, 30,000 votes difference? You'll never pick that up. Here's one that I did myself. I was interested in the gubernatorial race with Kay Ivey. I wanted to see how she was doing. November 8th, 22, I was at my computer and I had two monitors. I had the CNN up on the left-hand side, and I had Secretary of State's website on the right-hand side. And I noticed something, and I took out my camera and I took a picture at 7:56 p.m. And if you look at that, Kay Ivey has 5,033 votes. 3 minutes later, Kay Ivey has 3,140. So the Secretary of State's website was lagging behind on the information that was being sent. Question is, we're the citizens of Alabama. Why is our data going much faster from the precincts, or I'm sorry, not the precincts, the county courthouse, much faster to New Jersey, out to the news organizations, much faster than what the Secretary of State's reporting? And Clay knows the answer. You know, all right. The other interesting thing here is, where's Kip? Kip pointed this out to me, a very sharp guy. I had to add this there because he was He was the guy, the sharp eye that picked us up. Yolanda Flowers, the Democrat person running against Kay Ivey, lost 388 votes. Again, the same thing as what you saw with Joe Biden and Donald Trump. They're manipulating our data right before our eyes. And if I didn't take these pictures here, nobody would have picked that up. Okay, one more. In the runoff in 22, in June, I took the data from 4 different, and I mixed them up. I took them from 4 different offices, the voting results. One from a federal, the U.S. Senate, Katie Britt and Mo Brooks. Federal House, District 5, that was a strong Wadinsky election. Statewide office, Alabama Secretary of State Wes Allen, and then also a local House 20. If you look at all these numbers, it's very strange to me that all of them lost within 36%, an average of 36%. That's strange to me. That doesn't seem right. And you got to ask yourself, was there an algorithm at play here? Were they manipulating the votes? Clay and I went to an open house in Madison County for Judge Barger, had an open house right before the election. And Clay, sharp eyes, walked around the room with me and he said, hey, look at this. And he found at least 2 routers in the corner, at least 2, behind a caged fence. And then if you look around the room, there were repeaters. And I got to ask yourself, if the machines aren't connected to the internet and don't have that capability, why did they have all of this Wi-Fi capability in the room, in the warehouse where nobody goes? It just doesn't make sense to me. And I'm going to be honest with you, when I was doing all this research, I started back in May or so, and up until about August, being an engineer, I was trying to look at the big picture and say, okay, let's say that the machines are manipulated wherever. That means that they would have to go across 3,000 counties in the United States, 3,200. It would be a massive amount of manpower for them to do this. And I just didn't see it. It didn't make sense. And then in August, Gateway Pundit came out with an article. You can see the link down below that said they discovered that the nationwide cellular network connects federal government to election systems down to the precinct level. Now, the system that they called is called FirstNet. It was created in 2012 for good purposes. Yeah, I would see this. Yeah, they could see the justification for this. In cases of emergency, a 9/11 event, huge tornadoes across the state of Alabama, they want to be able to open up the communication links because everybody's going to be on their phone. And what they do is they shut down all of your phones would be put on a lower priority, or just you wouldn't get cell service. And then they increase the broadband width for the emergency services. They later added water, energy, and transportation to that FirstNet system. Then, right before Obama left, he added the election system to this FirstNet system. So that put everything together for me. Now they have 1, 2, or 3 central locations that they can control everything in the United States down to the precinct level on these machines. Now, here's an example of it, and this happened twice in Dallas County, Texas. This is November 23. They were about to close up. Somebody pulled out a video camera, and the reason they did that is that the same thing happened the previous year, and they were caught unaware. This time they had a video camera, and they took a video of this, and within what's the time here? They went from 182 people that registered at that particular precincts up to 1,377. Virtually impossible. You can't cycle that many people through at that time. But it happened in, I think, 20 minutes. And if you go to this link on the bottom, you can see the actual video where they are clicking all these numbers. Somebody outside the precinct was increasing those poll numbers for what? Pump and dump, or the voter line of credit to make sure that they had enough votes or registered voters to match the machine output. Clay, you had a question? Okay, and I need to get going here because we want to get Senator Orr up here. Like I said, it was the same before. How it's done, this is a summary. Before the election, especially in the presidential election, they decide the outcome of each state down to the county level. They ensure that they have voter line of credit. We went over that. And then they program the swing states, especially in those states right there. Those are the ones that count because the other ones are going to be too. They know the Democrats are going to win there. The Republicans, if they mess with those, it would be obvious, so they go for the swing states. During the election, the databases and machines are hacked and tracked. They manipulate the votes, regulate the county outcomes, and most likely, this is my opinion, Clay can argue this, I think a lot of the cheating comes from the Seidel software and the Edison software. After the election, they clean up all of the evidence. The paper ballots are locked up. The thumb drives are erased, like I mentioned before, and the tabulators go back into the warehouse and are not touched until the next election. I won't go over this, just my opinion. Solution, I told you a lot about the bad news. I want to end up with some good news. The good news that we can come back and get our election integrity back is through hand count paper ballots. And this is a movement that's going across the United States. Here are some countries that use machines. And you can see that we're in good company with Venezuela, United Arab Emirates, and the Dominican Republic. This is the company we keep. These are the countries that use paper ballots. You have a whole bunch of them there. I'm not going to read them. Most likely, or most recently, was Argentina, if you remember that election a couple months ago. And just a couple weeks ago was Taiwan. Those were hand count paper ballots. What do these countries know that we are refusing to look at? There were a lot of people, and especially in power, I won't mention any names, but when you say about hand count paper ballots, they throw their arms up and say, oh my God, if you don't like delays now, it's going to be weeks before you get your results. Well, apparently there's lack of knowledge there, because if you look at France, they have 48 million people, registered voters. Germany has 60. Netherlands has 13. Alabama, 3.7. Look at the difference. These people get their results within 1 to 2 hours, and they have orders of magnitude more registered voters than we do. Doesn't make sense. As far as the law is concerned, if you look at 17.721, the governing body of any county may, the key word is may, authorize use of electronic voting counting machines in their elections. It doesn't say you can't. It said you can use anything you want. The county commissioners can decide in those counties. We, the people, have to put pressure on our county commissioners, not only here in Madison, but in every county. That's how it's going to happen. You're not going to convince them to go otherwise because they give up their power. Very quickly, cost. I wanted to find out what the costs were. I was very much interested in the cost per tabulator, but I couldn't find it. I looked at the state budget, did a word search on these numbers. I couldn't find anything in there. You could drive a truck through some of the line items on that state budget line. I did find election expenses. That word came up, it cropped up, and it was somewhere between $30 and $37 million. I didn't know what it was spent for. Most likely it's county reimbursement, because the counties pay for all of the elections and they get partially reimbursed from the state. So they're covering about half or 2/3 of the cost at the county level. So since I couldn't find any data, I wanted to be able to hand calculate what the cost was, and I did that, and I got sources from Limestone County, Madison City, Alabama, when they had a city election, and I got a lot of data from Linda Rance in Osage County, Missouri. Was able to do some hand calculations, came up with $9,700 per tabulator. Then Susan Chipman did some research for me just last week, and she found a bid that Ohio put on an RFP for machines, and they got numbers for ES&S and Dominion, and they range between $8,000 and $1,400 per tabulator and $7,000 to $12,000 per tabulator. And you can see I came pretty close. I did injure my elbow a little bit when I was patting myself on the back. Oh, it wasn't that funny. Okay. Then, grace of God, when I wanted this data, I get a call from Linda Rance when I was talking to her, and she came up with actual data. They had hand count in Osage County last 2 cycles. She was able to come up with it. She was able to come up with this data, which says that machine counts in her county were $4.74 per vote, a valid piece of information. For the machine counts, the hand count was $2.71. That's a savings for them of $2.03 per vote, which is around 40%. That's how much money they saved. So when I took those numbers and I put it into the Limestone effort for their elections, they could have saved $277,000. That is a significant chunk of change. When you take those same numbers and you extrapolate it to the state level, we as taxpayers are sending money to the tune of $34 million to ES&S. That's how much money that we're giving them every 4 years. Correct. Okay, I already talked about Clay. He's we call him a white hat hacker here, and the interesting thing is that he was able to hack over 100 different machines in 2 to 10 minutes. Now, if he can do that, just think of what a professional can do. That's his full-time job. He's an example of a person that stood up, said, I've had enough. Just an average, ordinary guy stood, I had enough, and he started fighting back. And we all in this room have talents that we can use to fight this battle. Message here is that the truth is now spreading, and more and more people are moving to hand count paper ballots. I want to leave you with this, is that, again, I wanted something rolled up onto one slide so I can understand the big picture. We voters control our legislative and executive branches through our vote. That's how we control our republic. Through them, indirectly, we control our armed forces, our tax dollars, the borders, which isn't working very well lately, spending, judges, and the laws. Unfortunately, there's another group there, the industrial military complex, lobbyists, and foreign countries. They're dumping huge, huge amounts of money, millions, if not billions of dollars in there for influence. If we take away our vote, we lose control. We now become a banana republic or like China. Bottom line here is that you can't rely on a white light like Kennedy or Trump or whoever you want to win the presidential election. He's not going to be able to solve that himself. It's going to we're going to do a die battle for our country. If we don't win in this 2024 election, I think it's going to be over. Again, my opinion. And don't look to anybody else in election day to solve this problem. I want everybody to look to the person on the left, the person on the right, and when you go home, look at the person in the mirror. Those are the faces that are actually going to win and fight this battle. It's us. Last message, Joseph Stalin said, those who vote decide nothing, those who count the vote decide everything. This is what we're going to become if we don't take our country back. So if you want to see the whole version, you can go to Focus on America. Thank you. Website, and you can see the whole thing. Thank you for listening, and we're going to turn it back to Rebecca.
Okay, guys, give Bob another big round of applause. You don't have to worry about taking extra notes. This is available on our website. We also have it in shorts for those of you who are like me and can only digest so much a little bit at a time, because I don't do spreadsheets as well as they do. But we're honored to have Senator Arthur Orr with us today. I want to remind you that this is available on our website. So there's no cameras, there's no videoing, you'll have access to this. We want to respect everybody's privacy. So as I say that, I don't think he needs an introduction really. He's just says enough on his own, right? So as we get switched back over, you ready? Okay, so we have, as I said, Senator Arthur Orr, Alabama Senate District 3. He's a native of Alabama. He's a graduate of Wake Forest, which I didn't know until I read this. I have a friend doing there, University of Alabama School of Law. He joined the U.S. Peace Corps, which I thought was really cool, and assigned to a remote Himalayan village in Nepal where he lived with no indoor plumbing on dirt floors. So he's equally qualified to be in Montgomery. So sorry. Anyway, after returning to Decatur, he practiced law and was active in his community. He joined Habitat for Humanity and was assigned to Bangladesh. He joined Cook's Pest Control and is currently their executive vice president. Since his election in 2006, Senator Orr has actively served in many areas dealing with high school dropout rate, putting the state's checkbook online, improving campaign finance reporting, he has, in removing racist language from the Constitution, and scores of other laws, all to improve our state. He and his wife Amy have one son, Jack, and a daughter, Anna. They live in Decatur and are members of Redeemer Presbyterian Church. Senator Orr serves there as an elder and an adult Sunday school teacher, and he also puts up with me when I visit in Montgomery. Give me a big hand for Senator Arthur Orr.